Gilmore Girls Rory is a beloved smart girl icon and was the kind of girl so many of the girls watching at home wanted to be when the show began airing. But given that Gilmore Girls follows Rory as she evolves through young adulthood, it's not surprising that she had to learn the hard way that some of her outlook on life was totally wrong along the way. That doesn't make her a bad person. Messing up is a big part of growing up. But it does give us an interesting opportunity to take a look back and analyze what specifically about her personality and choices caused those issues and how they affected her story, for better and worse. So let's take a deeper look at some of the things even super smart Rory got wrong about life, love, and becoming your own person, and how they ended up being important lessons for Rory and the viewers. From the very beginning, it's made clear that in the world of the Gilmore Girls, Rory is seen as a perfect angel. Everyone in her life holds her up on a pedestal in pretty much every way imaginable, and it's clear that Rory has come to see herself in this way too. She sees herself as a good and nice person, but unfortunately her actions don't always align with that self-perception. She can be rude and pretentious, even to those closest to her. Growing up with a cool mom like Lorelai meant that Rory felt that she was the level-headed one in the house.
Just hurry!
Oh, this sucks. This sucks!
It's 7:18!
Oh, for the love of God!
But this led her to discount all of the ways that Lorelai was actually quite clever. She understands people and the world in a way that Rory doesn't yet have the experience or interest to. Not to mention, she survived as a 16-year-old mother of a newborn all by herself. But this conception Rory has of her being innately good and better than everyone can lead her to be rather entitled and selfish at times. From regular teenager-type mistakes like ignoring her best friend for her shiny new boyfriend to actually pretty bad things like deciding she's going to write a book about Lorelai's life without Lorelai's permission because she thinks it'll pull her out of her jobless and directionless millennial slump.
I sat down and it just came out, flew out. It's like the story has just been sitting in my brain for years, taking up space.
And not to mention her whole thing with relationships. Don't worry, we'll get to that. Rory wants to believe she's above being a rich elitist because she knows on some level that that's not cool or who she wants to be. But the truth is, Rory is a snob, as much as she might try to deny it. When Logan's uber-wealthy parents don't think the sun shines out of Rory's baby blue eyes, she can't handle it.
I mean, I'm a Gilmore. Do they know that? My ancestors came over on the Mayflower.
She, on the surface, pretends that she thinks she's special because of what she does, but at times she slips up and makes it clear that she thinks she's special because of who she is.
Wake up, Rory, whether you like it or not, you're one of us. You went to prep school, you go to Yale. Your grandparents are building a whole damn astronomy building in your name.
It takes a long time and several wake-up calls for Rory to start unwinding her sense of self from this idea that she was born better than everyone else, and that being perceived as nice is the same thing as being kind. In tandem with her snobbish attitude is a feeling that she doesn't ever really need to try. And to be fair to Rory, for much of her life the universe did seem to reward her just for existing, so it's not surprising that she began to see things that way. When Rory and Paris first begin butting heads, much of the animosity on Paris's end comes down to the fact that it seems like the world just gives Rory whatever she wants without Rory even trying, while Paris works incredibly hard at everything she does.
I've been a camp counselor, I organized a senior literacy program, I worked a suicide hotline, I manned a runaway center. I've adopted dolphins, taught sign language, trained seeing eye dogs.
And for a long time, the show didn't really point things in a different direction. Rory did just keep winning out through seemingly no real work of her own, even ending up becoming valedictorian over Paris when they graduated from Chilton. Rory is also always protected by the cushion of her rich grandparents, which means she often doesn't really have to feel the brunt of the consequences of her poor choices, like when she drops out of Yale and then just gets to live in their pool house rent-free. Because of all of this, when Rory is confronted with a situation where she actually needs to put forth effort, she doesn't really know how to respond. Being expected to actually prove that she's as good as she thinks she is always throws her for a tailspin, like when she attempts to work with Logan's dad, a wealthy newspaper titan, and he's honest with her about her abilities, or lack thereof.
I just don't think you really have the drive to put yourself out there, to be honest. to get a story, to dig.
This causes Rory to have such a catastrophic meltdown that it's actually what leads to her ditching Yale, and though she doesn't totally give up on her journalism dream in the end, she doesn't really seem to have learned from the whole ordeal, even by the time we see her a decade later as a grown adult in A Year in the Life. She goes into an interview and is surprised to be asked questions because she just assumed they'd give her the job on the spot.
Sorry, I just didn't have a pitch prepared.
That's a little weird. Thought you'd bring some ideas.
Don't get me wrong, I have ideas.
Like?
Stuff about the world, culture.
A big issue for Rory was that she was so seldom put into situations where she needed to try growing up. She did well in school, and her main hobbies were reading and watching old movies with her mom.
I'm into the Russians lately.
Tolstoy, Turgenev?
Gogol's my thing right now.
She needed more opportunities to try new things that she might even be bad at, to really learn what it means to fail and pull yourself back up. And this was actually a reason that her friendship with Paris was so key. Paris was constantly doing new things, everything she could possibly get her claws into, and so she pulled Rory along with her into those ventures. They gave Rory opportunities to take risks and try new things. And Rory was, funnily enough, a bit of a Lorelei for Paris, expanding her horizons on the being a regular person plane.
I'm not allowed to have mac and cheese. Splurge. Come on, Paris. Stay. Do you have a 24-hour pharmacy just in case I have an allergic reaction to something? Believe it or not, we do.
This video is brought to you by Skillshare. Like Rory, I found that it's important to expand my hobbies and skill sets and not get stuck in a rut. So, one major item on my summer bucket list this year is improving my Adobe After Effects skills. And Skillshare's Adobe After Effects Basics Start Animating Learning Path is helping me make it happen. In the classes, I've begun learning how to make lots of fun, simple animations like these. Skillshare is the largest online learning community for creatives with thousands of classes, led by industry experts across film, illustration, design, freelance, productivity, and more, making it super easy for you to get started on your own summer learning bucket list and take your skills, career, or side hustle to the next level. And if you're not sure where to start, there are lots of awesome learning paths like the one I'm in, which are groups of handpicked classes that build on one another, so you can get started learning without stressing about which class you should take. Don't let the summer pass you by. Join me in a learning journey this summer. Plus, the first 500 people to use our link in the description will receive a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. Get started today.
We can't talk about Rory's missteps without taking a look at her very, let's say, lax respect for relationships. Some of this was just due to the run-of-the-mill bad choices of teenagerdom, plus the fact that she was the main teen girl on a WB show, so of course they needed to have her constantly stuck in some kind of love triangle situation. But the fact that her cheating became a pattern was a problem. Her most egregious was, of course, when she slept with Dean, her first love, who she had actually cheated on with Jess while he was engaged to someone else. To be sure, as the person actually in the relationship, Dean carries much of the fault. But it's not like Rory was unaware that he was engaged to Lindsay. She just saw Dean, like everything and everyone else she wanted, as already belonging to her, and so didn't think it would really count as being bad.
Well, aren't you glad that it happened with someone who's good and really loves me?
But he's married.
You don't understand the situation.
Is he still married?
Yes, but
Then I understand the situation.
In A Year in the Life, she's fully given in to cheating ways, being also engaged to someone else, Logan's side piece, while she's also in a relationship with a guy who she and everyone else is super mean to for no apparent reason. Her cheating is a major symptom of her larger issue of waving away all of her bad choices because she sees herself as the main character of life and so assumes everyone else should just be beholden to her wants and desires. Rory isn't a terrible friend. She's certainly a much better friend than she is a girlfriend, but that doesn't mean that she doesn't falter along the way. Part of this is likely due to the fact that the best friend role in her life was so completely filled by her mother. She didn't really feel the need to work to foster that kind of deep connection with others for a long time. Because Rory is so often focused on herself, she's not always great at really listening to her friends' problems and is often willing to put her needs above their own. But thankfully, this is the area where Rory has her best growth. While she might not be a perfect friend, she does come to be a good friend to those close to her. From sneaking Lane's CDs when she got grounded to letting her live in her dorm room, Rory did try to make up for the times she made Lane feel second best. And the fact that Rory isn't in desperate need of friendship is actually likely what allowed her and Paris to work so well as friends. She was able to let Paris's meaner side bounce off of her and continue to be there for her, and she came to appreciate how Paris was willing to stand up for herself and her friends.
Can you let her off the hook for God's sakes? In case you didn't know it, Rory is a great person, and she does not deserve to be treated this way.
Paris.
Anyone should feel lucky to call her a friend. I know I do.
Many of Rory's biggest issues all stemmed from the fact that things would always work out in her favor in the end. She never really felt the need to commit herself to trying and putting herself out there because of her belief that the universe would just bring whatever she wanted right to her. She never seems to truly appreciate the immense safety net she has in life. Not just a stable, caring mother who loves her deeply and champions her in almost everything she does, but also her mega-rich grandparents who are always there to buy her way into or out of anything she needs, plus that whole town of people who thinks she's the universe's gift to the world. While things did just keep falling into place for her when she was younger, in A Year in the Life, we finally got to see how her lack of work ethic or ability to plan for the future did start to catch up with her.
Everything I own is in boxes scattered around 3 different states. I have no job. I have no credit. I have no underwear.
She didn't end up becoming the world-renowned journalist she had always assumed she would be no matter what. Life actually gave her a big wake-up call that being Rory Gilmore isn't enough all on its own. And it might at first seem kind of sad that this once bright-eyed and bushy-tailed smart girl ends up miserable and living back at home without any path toward a brighter future.
Well, it's a group of kids all about your age. They've been to college, then out in the real world, and it spit them out like a stale piece of gum, and now they're all back in their old rooms like you.
But that struggle of Rory's is probably the most true to life. Sometimes we really don't become fully able to acknowledge that we need to change our lives or rethink our perceptions of ourselves until we're hit with a really major, unavoidable obstacle. And Rory's belief that everything would work itself out in the end springs directly from the way the world around her treated her as a child. Being set up as this perfect person who can do no wrong as a child can absolutely mess up your sense of self and your connection to the world around you. And if you've ever come across #FormerGiftedKid TikTok, you know that that can be a very real struggle that many relate to. Really, so many of the most interesting parts of Rory's story all come out of the conflicts created by her own issues. She's got such a cushy life. If she was also the perfect angel everyone pretended she was when she was a kid, it would have equaled a pretty boring life where she didn't ever get a chance to learn anything or grow as a person. And while some parts of her personality might be a little grating, that doesn't necessarily make her a bad person. Sure, we probably wouldn't want to follow in her footsteps, but watching and learning from her missteps can help us take a second look at our own choices, and maybe help push us to make some better ones.
This adult stuff is hard, isn't it?
That's The Take. Click here to watch a video we think you'll love, or here to check out a whole playlist of awesome content. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. And make sure to subscribe to our Patreon for exclusive new videos.